Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the NRG Series Championship. I'm Matt Pamonte. I'm going to quickly get us into our players to watch leaderboard, which is also our top 8 currently. And we're going to see who is battling it out to get into the next stage. And we will show you who's been eliminated from our tournament in just a moment. Here, we'll bring that slide up for you. So you can see Andrew Ellenbogen and Zoe Riedemann both get to 2 and 0. We said goodbye to Ivan Espinosa and Nicole Dubin this round. Now, the 4 players left to battle it out is going to be Jesse Robkin, Max Kamenowski, Connor Mullally, and Raja Suleiman. And it sounds like all 4 of those players are ready to battle down in our feature match area. So I'm going to send you back down to Mason and Dom for our last round of this stage, and we'll be in the top 4 shortly.
And let's start off. We have Jesse Robkin versus Connor Mullally. If you're a fan of the NRG series, you have seen this a bunch. These 2 players have played multiple times. We saw them actually play at our last showdown in Kentucky, where if Connor had won, which he did, he became our player of the year. So he won that one. And Jesse Robkin, if she had won, had a chance to win out and be the player of the year. Looks like those players are waiting for the go ahead from us here. But yes, they have a little bit of rivalry. You know, they're 2 players who are pushing each other. And ultimately, you know, it's friendly. But Connor is someone who is very competitive, Dom, takes it very seriously. He has a wall on front of his computer, Dom, where, you know, he has like things put up for people he wants to be and stuff like that. And he prints out tweets, you know, when people dunk on him. It's like, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to take you down. We love the competitive drive. However, Dom, there was some tier list discourse about the NRG event competitor. And Jesse Robkin said, my tiers are ordered. And in B tier, she had herself as number 1 for the B tiers and Connor number 2. Connor took that personally and made it his phone background and his mission this weekend to prove he is better than Jesse once and for all.
And we're going to see a matchup which tends to end very quickly either way here. Mono White Humans versus Lotus Field combo. Connor, one of the premier Lotus Field grinders for, I would say, the past few years now, even when it's kind of taken a back seat in the Pioneer format, Connor has been one of its proponents. And now that it is squarely in the top tiers of the format once again, great time if you're a Lotus Field expert, as Connor certainly is. And his list for this weekend that he worked on with Piper Powell, much more focused on goldfishing quickly. You see Hope Tender there, if we can bring that up. 2-drop, which lets you exert itself to untap land. So you pair that with, there we go. You pair that with Lotus Field, you're threatening more consistent turn 4 kills, even turn 3, if everything goes according to plan there.
Yeah, much better in the goldfish. And this is why sometimes you won't see players play this, is because they're worried about, you know, things like Rakdos mid-range killing the Hope Tender and you're being down a card and wasted some time, you know, in a matchup where your time is actually a little bit pressured somewhat. Here in this field, Connor and Piper did not expect that. So they went up to, I believe, 3 Hope Tenders in the main with 1 in the sideboard and no Vizier Remedies to draw a card and cycle away to untap a land. So
yeah, this list also much better placed to fight against these aggressive decks. So you see our main deck Languish, a recent innovation where a lot of these decks are going to have a sweeper that they can Dark Petition for, Mastermind's Acquisition for, and then 2 Depopulates in the sideboard. That's your Wrath of God effectively there, and then 3 Elder Gargoth as well. So you can really transform into this deck that doesn't need to combo in order to win. Still needs to get to Lotus Field, but beyond that, you can pick and choose how you want to close out the game from there.
Yeah, and it looks like Connor is going to exert his Hope Tender to untap some lands after playing another Hope Tender and then Sylvan Scrying. And I'm going to guess grab the card to Lotus Field, Dom.
Deck's called Lotus Field. Don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah. Just say, yes, sir, and move on. As we do see the Lotus Field in her hand, and Jesse is under the gun. You know, it isn't a for sure thing that Jesse is going to die on the next turn, but it is pretty much known that Connor has the mana to play Lotus Field, copy it with Thespian Stage with the floating mana from our lands being stacked, and then on the next turn have access to at minimum 12 mana.
Yeah, and you see why that trade-off of making yourself worse to removal in game 1, you know, cards like Fatal Potion, Bone Crusher Giant do have targets now. In return, you get this massive burst of speed if your Hope Tender lives, and right now we have 2 Hope Tenders living, so all bets are off for next turn.
100%, yeah. And we see Jesse Adelaining up over here and just making sure she knows where she wants to put it, just thinking through her whole turn, making sure she's, you know, doing everything right here. The rounds are timed at this portion of the event. But, plenty of time in this matchup, both players sort of know what's going to happen here. They kind of know this is like a turn 4 matchup either way. And it's a thing where, because the players know this, they're going to mulligan and play accordingly. And they also know they can take a little time to think through their turns. We saw Connor even take, a couple minutes there to think through what he was going to grab and do. Jessie feels pretty good about this matchup, by the way. I helped her and Andrew test. This is something they were kind of hoping to see. They thought there might be 1 or 2 Lotus Field players. They kind of thought maybe Will Kruger might play Lotus Field after his recent success with the deck. But I'm sure, Jessie is happy to see a Lotus Field player here, as there was only 1 in her and Andrew's pod in the pod stage.
And we see in some of the other mono white lists, so Nicole Dubin's list had some copies of Tomic, Distinguished Advocate, a card which is fantastic against both mono green and Lotus Field. Jesse's list and the list that Andrew's playing too don't have that. And so I think Connor can breathe easy in that regard. Still can be a tough matchup for Lotus, especially on the draw. But this list that Connor and Piper have come up with, very targeted at beating these aggro decks. So we're going to see if that plan can go through here.
Yeah, it looks like Connor is pulling out a notepad, a pen and paper, because he is trying to keep track of his blue and his green mana with untapped with Hope Tender, and just make sure, okay, I'm going to plan this out real quick and make sure I can actually do stuff, because it looks like he is dangerously close to actually having that Sultai Ultimatum. We might just see Connor, play his Lotus Field this turn and then just pass and hope to not get, Thalia Lieutenant plus Brave the Elements. But even that might not be enough to actually win the game. So this looks like Connor's going to take a minute to think. Jessie, hands in head. Team elbow on table, doing their classic.
Yeah, so one issue at the moment here is we want to copy the Lotus Field with Thespian Stage, but if we do that in response to the trigger, then we don't have that mana left over to exert the Hope Tender. So we don't get full value out of the Hope Tender just yet, but between the activation there, and then if we can work in a copy with a stage, maybe you can finagle our way up to enough mana for whatever the payoff is. Usually Emergent Ultimatum, and we see the full 4 copies here in this list, but sometimes you have to get there through other means as well.
Yeah, it looks like what Connor did is he floated 1 mana and untapped his Lotus Field, floated a mana with the other land he sacked, and now has 4 mana. And so he can either Mastermind's Acquisition from hand, he can go on an adventure with the Fae, he can copy Thespian Stage. It looks like Connor's just taking a second to double check, okay, am I just dead right now? If Jessie off the top plays Thalia's Lieutenant plus Brave the Elements, we know Jessie has neither of those cards, although she might not need Brave the Elements now that we've tapped both Hope Tenders. And it does look like Jessie has, by my count, 11 damage, Dom. Is that what you have as well?
So let's see. Assuming we animate the Mutavault, that's 5 from Adeline, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got a counter in there. So it's already overkill, even with nothing being added to the board. And Jessie has a grip full of cards over there. So I think it is now or never for Connor.
Yeah, I totally missed the Mutavault, Dom. Great catch there. I was thinking we need a thing off the top, but we don't. So Connor Mullaly, in a little bit of a tricky spot here, maybe he has to cast this Impulse in order to try and find another blocker.
It looks like, is that Oda? No, that's okay. I thought maybe Odawara there, but no, it's Impulse. So gonna use that mana, see what we can find.
And Connor's dead. He's picking it up. Wow. Connor has respect. He's like, listen, Jessie's going to remember the trigger. If I'm going to remove this wallpaper and be the better player, I can't, rely on that. And he's going to go straight to the sideboard. We see him flick those Elder Gargaroths to the front, Dom. So when we start sideboard discussions, we know exactly what he's doing. But also, wow, this sort of shows the problem with the Lotus Field deck, right? Sometimes you can have everything going and you're just still too slow for these fast decks, even when they have, let's be honest, middling starts.
Yeah, Jessie didn't have Thalia, which is the main disruptive creature in the matchup. Couldn't kill the Hope Tenders, either one of them, with a Apparition or a Cathar, anything like that. We're just playing some creatures in attack and crossing our fingers, and that was actually good enough. The Lotus Field deck does have a fail rate of sorts, even after it has its namesake card and some of the other pieces ready to go.
Yeah, well, let's check out the sideboards of these players and see what they have going. And yeah, if you're a Connor, that was your game to win, and you need to really clutch it up here. So we see Connor's, we talked about this already. He has 3 Hope Tenders in the main deck. really trying to be faster and to try and win matchups like that, and does have a main deck Languish. So, he wasn't just dead there on that last turn. If he had drawn Languish instead, he could have done all the same plays and cleared the board and been in a commanding position. However, he didn't. So, Dom, what do you like in the sideboard here besides those 3 Elder Gargoyles that we saw Connor slam to the front?
I would say the 2 depopulates as sweepers that you can cast off Lotus and any other land, and maybe the Ugin as well, just as a card which it's not a combo piece per se, can't find it with ultimatum or anything, but sometimes you get 8 mana and you cast Ugin and the game ends. And maybe we want to pursue that angle. How we find room for all of this is another question. Maybe shaving down on some of the more expensive combo enablers like pour over the pages, something like that. But yeah, I would think Elder Gargoyles will come in, Sweepers will come in, and we'll just be a kind of weird combo-y ram deck in these post-Sidewall games.
Yeah, we have Joe Lissette on the coverage stream. We got to cover Connor yesterday. He talked about how in a matchup where your opponent can't take away your wish target, sometimes you trim one of those. So maybe one of those is going to go away. Probably Mastermind's Acquisition, since Fae of Wishes being a 1/4 is actually a huge body in this matchup. We'll have to see what Connor does ultimately in the match. Let's check out Jesse's sideboard real quick. As we've seen her list a lot because Andrea Elming played the same list. They did not come prepared with many sideboard cards for this one, Dom. Is there anything you really like out of the board?
I guess the only thing that stands out is the 2 copies of Redain, where a lot of the payoffs and some of the enablers for the Lotus Field deck do cost 4 or more. And if you can tax those, then you can really certainly mess up something like an Ultimatum, for example. And then maybe the Declaration in Stone. You know that Connor is going to have 3 Elder Gargoyles, and the Hope Tenders can help to churn out these explosive combo turns. So just a way to remove those is going to be appealing. Same logic, maybe these Skyclave apparitions turn into Brutal Cathars along the same lines.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what's going to happen here. These Brave the Elements can sort of answer a Gargoth unless it isn't lethal, and then you're in a very awkward spot. So I think Declaration of Stone plays the exact same role there. And yeah, Brutal Cathar is a human, so it just triggers your other stuff too. So, worst comes to worst. Got that going for you. It looks like the players are mulliganing. Looks like they have Captain Jesse. Looks to have a fast start here with a couple 1-drops and a Thalia's Lieutenant. Can't quite see what Connor has, but he started with Balagate's Recovery. That spell is the land. We're trying to get Connor to flip that over here when he has a second. I see this play Blast Zone into Hope Tender.
Yeah, Blast Zone, another land, which has kind of worked its way out of a lot of these Lotus Field lists. But if you think there's going to be a field full of these aggro decks like Mono White, then worth adding that one back in, and we'll see if it can do any work in this game.
Yeah. Also a great card to answer, a Damping Sphere, if you're trying to fight through that from the mono green deck. So a card that has a lot of work here, as we do see Connor doing the thing on turn 3. It's going to exert the Hope Tender.
So this is 5 mana for potentially Elder Gargoth.
Yeah, and maybe it wasn't
a big boy.
Yeah, turn 3 Guard Girl. The big Gargs. And if Jesse has Declaration Stone, she's in a really good spot. If she doesn't have that or Brutal Cathar, she's in a bit of trouble. And she has Redain in hand as her 3-drop of choice this turn. Oh, it is Brutal Cathar. Sorry, I was hiding out from underneath there. Jesse just taking her time, and I love that. Behind the scenes, Jesse had lethal versus Connor. If she had done a little bit differently back in Kentucky, she rushed through the turn because she thought she had the game won, lost the game because of a mistake, and vowed to never make that mistake again there. So I love that she took the time to actually double check and make sure, hey, I do want to remove this Elder Gargoth, right? This is the thing I need to be doing, even if it is clearly the play from above. Taking that extra 1 second doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, and so with the Gargoth trapped under the Brutal Cathar, Connor needs to come up with something impressive, but if there is a sweeper of some kind, then we stabilize the board and get the Gargoth back and force Jesse to answer that once again. So this could be a very swingy turn in either direction here for Connor. We see the Thespian stage, so that can copy the Lotus Field. Work towards a big turn on the following turn, but we might not have time to get all of that together. We'll see.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jesse has Redain in hand, so getting a sweeper might be really hard after this turn. Obviously, Hope Tender plus Lotus Fields, you're able to get a lot of mana, so that might actually invalidate it. But, Connor maybe has a chump block with one of these if something like Thalia comes down. Thalia's Lieutenant. And I think we actually have both Thalia and Thalia's Lieutenant in hand. So Connor might be under a little bit of, a small amount of taxation, but if he has to spin his wheels for a bit, it could add up. As we do see Thalia's Lieutenant come off the hand here. And this is another moment of, wait, they didn't activate Mutavault? Please activate Mutavault. I really don't want you to use more mana.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jesse double checking here how she wants to do this. Yeah. She's just going to wait to play the Thalia. That way, Connor doesn't know that he maybe needs the Hope Tender. As Connor is getting beat down in one of his nightmare matchups, we have the training activate here. This is 11 damage. Connor is at 14. It looks like Connor is going to keep his life total high and then have a Thalia come down here for Jesse. And now Connor has basically everything set up, but if he has to spin his wheels for a long time, he's going to be in trouble. So I guess, Dom, I hate to do predictive cuffing, but I was say I think you probably have to start with copying the Lotus field.
Yeah. All right. So here's 6 right here.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we have free reign to build towards whatever we want. But the question is, what is that at this stage?
Yeah, and it looks like Connor does have a core of the page.
Is that alternate art Ugin hiding out in the back there?
If it is, things are not looking good for Robkin. There's a dark petition. That is that alternate art Ugin. That's that fancy one. And yeah, Connor does have another exert available. You know, the Hope Tender's back from being exerted now. So looks like Connor's going to start off with just pour over the pages. It's going to not generate any mana thanks to Thalia, but he is going to get some more looks, figure out exactly what he wants to do. So he does seem to have found another Impulse, an Odawara, and a Arboreal Grazer, a little Blocks Diamond, as you like to call it.
Do I like to call it that?
Oh, yeah, all the time. You're just texting sometimes Blocks Diamond.
I'm learning so much, not just about German and elbows and feet, but about myself here. It's a really transformative experience.
Yeah. Love to learn. And if you're
enjoying... We do want to thank the 1,000 people who are currently in the chat watching us, following along here. And if you're not following with the capital F, go and fix that right now. Smash that follow button down there so you can see how the rest of this tournament plays out. And then as our series heats back up again over the course of 2023, make sure that you stay on top of all of the developments there as well.
100%. You don't want to miss any of the action. It's going to be an exciting year in 2023. First events in March. We'll get more into that later on today. But right now, let's see. I figure out exactly what Connor's doing. It looks like we maybe have a spot where he's going to just cast the Ugin and then minus. It feels like there's something I'm missing. Oh, I guess Connor's afraid of Mutavault.
Yeah, that Elder Gargoth can threaten to jump in the way of the Mutavault. So we have that line of insurance ready to go. Also want to make sure we're not all in on that, though, if there is some other, like a Declaration in Stone or some other removal spell. So going to see if we can find that Arboreal Grazer maybe can take one for the team or some other line of defense against that.
Yeah, so it does get on play here. And this is going to be very close to lights out if Connor can untap with both these things in play. So Jesse's going to need to have a really good draw and, smart call on your point there, Dom, in order to realize like, hey, this Ugin might just be good even if we can't combo with it, quote unquote. Jesse, I'm thinking about Jesse's outs, Dom, and I think it might be that Connor gets a bunch of GRVs. I don't know what she could actually do to get out of this. What do you think, Dom? Is there anything?
I think we got a game 3 coming up, which is great. I mean, if you are a Jessie enjoyer, you want her to close the deal this game. But if you just want to watch some good magic here as we try and decide our top 4 players, then a game 3 down to the wire with all of that on the line sounds like a great follow-up here.
Yeah, I think these two rivals are going to be back at it again as Jesse does have a Luminarch Aspirant, can put the counter on the Mutavault as well so that, if Elder Gargoth lost Vigilance, it could attack through. But I think with the Ugin and everything in hand, Connor just needs to probably -2 again to play the other Gargoth, gain 3 life on the attack, and then move on to game 3 and hope to win on the draw. Looks like Connor might just actually try to win the combo way. Legally, you're allowed to do that, but also, come on. Just get the big gargler in there. Dom, do you gargle at night during your teeth routine?
I am the greatest. I'm the greatest Gargadon. It's me. It's been a question in Magic lore for so long. I'm happy to clear that up for people. And so, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Wow. I learned so much so fast. I'm so glad we're teaching each other things. That's really the best part of Magic, is making friends and meeting people and learning stuff from them.
So we have Dark Petition, and we certainly have Spell Mastery. We'll see what Connor wants to dig up with that. It, honestly, from this position, might just be another copy of Elder Gargoth.
Yeah. And let's see exactly what he's going to grab. Looks like, yeah, he did bring in the depopulation like you talked about. Looks like he's grabbing a Boseiju. Well, that makes sense to me. Just, that kills the Mutavault, which is like the one quote-unquote problem still presented to us.
Yeah, Boseiju was a really incredible addition to this Lotus Field deck. Not just a searchable answer to cards like Alpine Moon and Damping Sphere that's a lot cheaper than having to crank up the Blast Zone and sacrifice the Blast Zone, but you can just play copies of Boseiju, copies of Odawara, have these solutions to all of these different problems, and then at their worst, they're just lands that you play and then sacrifice your Lotus Field. So can weave those seamlessly into the mana base and make the deck a lot more flexible in the face of resistance.
100%. And looks like, yeah, Connor's just going to use the rest of it. Has the Gargs. From Jesse's standpoint, looks like Connor grabbed Gargaroth, right? She's like, oh, yeah, he tutored. He got another one of these. Reality, it was the Boseiju. So that's going to come and matter here. And then Connor, the Gargaroth has Vigilance. The modern-day Baneslayer Angel going to gain 3 life, it seems, putting him up to 6. And Jesse down to 14. And she is going to be in a rough spot. Yeah, she just draws, doesn't see anything that can possibly get out of this one. And she's going to just stop wasting her time and go on to game number 3 and be on the play and see just how the difference is. The last 2 games, Jesse's been on the draw. It's a big difference. And she killed with just enough time and almost killed Connor if Connor hadn't drawn the Ugin. So going to be a big, big difference for her to be on the play in this game number 3.
Yeah, if you have a fast start on the play, you almost don't need disruption in other games because that Goldfish can be fast enough. So Connor will really feel under the gun, put to the test, and his version of Lotus Field, as good as any I've seen, at keeping pace, breaking serve on the draw. We've got the Grazers, Hope Tenders, a lot of Sweepers, and Elder Gargaroth as a card which can sometimes stabilize the board by itself. But even with all of that, I think Jesse has to feel happy about her position being on the play in this game 3.
Yeah, you're still definitely favored. It is interesting, though, looking at Connor's deck list, how much worse a card like Thalia is against him, just because he does have the Hope Timber to untap the Lotus Field on the regular and just has the double untap with the Exert. So, cards like that are still good, but does make the equation and mulliganing a little bit different for Jesse. So it's going to be interesting to see how she adapts to that. I do see both players sideboarding right now again, so we might be seeing some on the play, on the draw situations happening. I know, like we mentioned earlier, Jesse and Andrew are pretty big on those. So that's exciting here. But yeah, Dom, who are you picking in order to win this here in game number 3 and move on to our stage 4, our finals essentially, and who's going to be going home?
Even being on the draw, I think I'm going to choose Connor just because, the Lotus Field deck has its fail rate built into it. But if it gets past that hump, I think this list is very well equipped to stave off the white human horde here. So I'm going to pick Connor. I imagine we're going to differ on that front, though.
Yeah, I'm picking Jessie. She was my pick to win the tournament as it was. So it'd be a little bit of a heel turn for me to switch now, but I am all in, all chips on titty pills. Jesse Robkin that's where I'm going to see win the tournament, as it does look like those players are just about to start playing. Let's jump to the feature match area.
More talk about heels and feet. It just never stops with Mason on this broadcast, but we will see.
Oh God.
Someone is mulliganing here. It looks like Connor potentially, or is Connor just shuffling Jesse's deck?
I'm not. Jesse has the lighter orange sleeves. Connor has the darker orange sleeves. It might be a situation where Connor decided to do a couple more shuffles real quick.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if the whole one deck game thing with Lotus Field would actually be interesting to watch, but maybe it would. Who knows? Use hidden strings as a trick to get your damage through.
Well, you're a cipher and you attack, it gives your creatures vigilance.
Oh, it sure does.
Yeah, I know all the cipher tricks.
Sylvan Scrying for Mutavault?
Hello? Sylvan Scrying for Castle Ardenvale. Dream big.
Or Aiganjo even, yeah.
Oh, a little bit of a removal spell situation. I guess with the 2 different color sleeves too, the shared deck combo, you're going to get to control your opponent's draw step. Like, oh, they really need a creature to win, and there's a light orange card on top. You cast your Sylvan Scrying, get a little shuffle going. It really changes the metagame up.
if you resolve a Merchant Ultimatum with a Mono White Human deck, there's a lot of options for you to choose between. So maybe this
true.
matchup would be better to watch than I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah, that's super true. Yeah, I tried to convince Jessie to play without sleeves this weekend against Red Black. That way she would know when to draw her winning announcements, but she thought it was a little Bush League. So we'll have to see exactly what she decides to do. As we do have a Rakdos mirror, we're still going to show you. We have Raja versus Max playing right now. So Raja did end up staying alive. As we saw, Max lost to Ellen Bogan. Those two players are playing a mirror. So no matter what, there's going to be a Rakdos player in the top four. Great news for Connor, terrible news for Jessie, as the top four is a double format, double matches situation.
We did see her teammate, Andrew Ellenbogen, just cleave through back-to-back Rakdos decks en route to booking his seat in that top four as well. So I wouldn't write them out just yet, but we do see both players mulligan here. Who do you think that favors in these baseball games?
I would guess that it favors whoever was on the play, to be honest, just because it's so much of a turns game. But Jessie didn't have a 1-drop and has multiple 2-drops here. Has a Destroy Evil in her hand. Guess she's getting ready for Elder Gargoth and Lear potentially. As we do see our Boyle
But here's the Grazer.
Yeah, that's going to put a stonewall to Jessie's aggression. All right, she drew a Luminarch Aspirant, so she's going to be able to keep attacking, luckily for her. But Connor now has this Lotus Field untapped on turn 3. And, Thalia, not going to be the best against this Lotus Field, but not the worst either. Not going to allow Connor to double spell, but he still will get to do what he's going to do in the developing turns.
Yeah, we might see Sylvan scrying here for a Thespian Sage to work towards that angle in a few turns from now.
Yeah, and it looks to be the case. Jessie ripped the Mutavault, slams it. She does have an Adelaine and double Brutal Cathar in hand with Destroy Evil. So she's got a little bit of an interesting one where, yeah, she can play this Adelaine and build up a wide board, or she can Brutal Cathar, clear the Arboreal Grazer, and slam in for 5 damage here. So really sort of her choice. I guess the Adelaine is more damage over 2 turns. So weird
the
situation.
Adelaide is more damage, and also you may want to save the Brutal Cathar for a Hope Tender or something, which kind of sneaks underneath to Destroy Evil, but could be threatening in its own right.
Makes sense here. And we do see an interesting play from Jessie there. She's going to put the counter on the Adelaine, basically saying like, hey, if I put it on my Luminarch Aspirant, you just get a chump. Not going to really matter. Heads up play for her to make it happen.
But I think also knowing that Connor does have a copy of Languish in his deck, and Dark Petition could work its way towards that. So hedging against one of the possible sweepers in Connor's deck does also have 2 copies of Depopulate, which could sweep the entire board regardless. But nothing here, no sweeper, no Elder Gargoth either. So Jessie will get a nice hefty attack in this turn. And if let's see, if Jessie goes to destroy or get the Arboreal Grazer out of the way, doing some quick math here.
She's really close.
If it's not lethal, it's very, very close. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
there
wins.
It is.
Yeah, it's exact lethal.
With the turn 5 kill here, just cleaving up Connor's slow start. And Jessie Robkin is going to be moving on to the top 4 with her teammate, Andrew Ellenbogen, with her other teammate and close friend, Zoe Riederman.
Yeah, it's kind of a star thing there. Congratulations to Jessie. Connor Mullaly, our player of the year. Good run there. 2 friends there holding hands, talking about it all at the end there of the match. But yeah, congratulations to Jessie Robkin. Looks like she's going to have to stay on that background there on the wall for a little bit longer for Connor to overcome that demon. And a great run there for Connor as well. Congratulations there. Let's go to our backup match, though, and let's see who's going to be joining Jessie, Andrew, and Zoe in our top 4.
Yeah, we know that the answer is going to be a copy of Rakdos Midrange. The question is who's going to be behind it. And this is one of these grindy matchups that you hear so much about.
Yep. As we do see a Thoughtseize get cast here for Max. And, Max jokingly puts the Krakas in the graveyard as Raja's writing the hand down. This is a time-shifted match, so we should be able to see all 3 of these games. And, yeah. Thoughtseize for Raja.
Gonna make a nice groove in my chair here, settle in for a nice long mid-range mirror between these 2 exceptional players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we do see a Thoughtseize. The Thoughtseize, kind of a somewhat common play, just be like, well, I've got some pretty good tools. We're going to be grinding some games here. I'm going to not let you take my best tool from me instead.
Yeah, it used to be said that these Thoughtseized effects were not at their best in these black mid-range mirrors. I think that really has changed in recent years just because the cards are also good now. And you want to take the Fable, you want to take the Shieldred or what have you that you might not be able to deal with otherwise. Because if that thing is left uncontested, could just win the game by itself. Especially Reckoner Bankbuster, another addition to that list in these mirrors as well. So yeah, I think Thoughtseize is actively a good card in these mirrors in a way that maybe it would not have been 5 years ago.
Yep. As we do see Raja just play a Misery Shadow on 2. See Max there getting his life total ready. And going to play his Blood Tithe Harvester. Kind of a funny thing happens now where Raja just gets to attack if he wants to, and Max can't really block unless he's willing to trade Raja's whole turn for his card, which he might be down for. Not quite sure what Max's plan to be there, but sort of a funny little interaction here with these shadow effects.
Yeah, that is a line which is, you don't often see it, but it is often looming over the game, is if I attack and they block and I have to sink an entire turn's worth of mana, well, maybe that's a card's worth of value in one sense by itself. So that line is always on the table. Not something you see come to pass often, but worth keeping in mind.
Yep. Thoughtseize here again. Looks like we picked up a land and another Graveyard Trespasser as the 2 new cards. I wonder what Raja's going to get. He's been, doubles time speed, and he hasn't really given us a good look at his hand. I can see a Fatal Push and a Bone Crusher Giant, so maybe one of these Shieldreds, the Shieldred's going to go, but it's really awkward no matter which one he takes.
Now, I know there's always this question of Jund guy versus foil Jund guy. I think the foil Jund guy has to be the hero in that story by default. But in this case, Max is not the foil Jund guy. He does not own these Rakdos cards. He's just deploying them on camera for this tournament.
100%. And how do I say this? He is just taking a modern trend and moving it to pioneer in a way that is both innovative, classic, and classy. And we love to see it from Max in every way.
So Fatal Push will take down Blood Tithe Harvester. Misery Shadow can crack in as a Grizzly Bear.
Yes. And looks like Raja missed a land drop? Or yeah, Raja was on the play. Yeah, so Raja missing a land. Something that is somewhat important in this matchup, if it happens for multiple turns, you can sort of miss for one turn and be fine. Yeah, Raja finds a Haunted Ridge into Fable the Mirror Breaker. That's going to let him catch up on mana as he uses the Max token. Hopefully, for the team of Max, Theo, and Connor, Max is the only one alive. We just saw Connor get eliminated from our championship out at the top 8 here, but Max is the sole remaining player from that showdown winning team on the board.
You're someone who has had their likeness put on a token in your day. Do you shed a tear when you have to point a Fatal Push or a Stomp at yourself?
I have often been like clues and things like that. So when I melt down or something like that, it really hurts to see a bunch of me goes. But to answer your question, yes, every time haunts me in my sleep.
I'm not on a clue. I am clueless. Some people would say, and those I wish I could argue with those people, but I really can't.
Yeah, as we see Raja discard double Bone Crusher Giant. No one to double stomp this Graveyard Trespasser.
Yeah, it never feels good to point removal at Trespasser either. So ideally you want to match it on the board and validate it on the board, but yeah, sometimes you have to grit your teeth and just chuck your removal spell and another card into the void to get it out of the way.
Yeah. It looks like Raja's in such an interesting spot where, he has a Graveyard Treasure, he has a Fatal Push, and he can use the treasure to trigger Revolt, but doesn't really need to. And now, his Graveyard Trespasser answers the Croxa. And so we're going to see sort of a weird sort of stall out moment here for the next couple of turns. But Max does have Shieldred, which sort of forces Raja to do something proactive sooner rather than later.
We'll see if both players successfully track day versus night over the course of however long this game ends up being.
Don't get me started on day is night and night is day. Max picked up a Bone Crusher for the turn. So little bit of tricky situation going on there. Means we have the Fable the Mirror Breaker covered, so we don't need to worry about any sort of infinity shenanigans there because Raja does have another Fable in the hand. And looks like Max is just going to take a second to double check the next couple turns of pre-planning. It's just going to get a Shieldred and be like, hey, you're at 12. I've got a couple turns to win, and I've got the dominating board presence. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah, you kind of expect your reflection of Kiki Jiki to die on sight in this matchup, but if it doesn't, then the world is your oyster. And we'll see if Max can deal with that when it comes back around to him again. And another Fable here from Raja.
Yep. As we see, Raja grab the Shaman token, another Max to the battlefield. And yeah, Raja's in an interesting place. He did have that fatal push, so if he wants, he could attack and then get rid of the Shieldred that way, but looks like he's going to choose to save it for right now. A little awkward to have, your Fable the Mirror Breaker be discard 2, draw 2, or anything like that when the face of a Shieldred, so we might see Raja not use that as much, as the words Pioneer instantly jump on the screen to cover Max, letting the players know that we have big old Pioneer going on. Love Pioneer. And if you love this coverage, by the way, click that follow button. That way to make sure you don't miss anything, and make sure to check out the NRG store online to pick up some good deals, as we do see the Fable Mirror Breaker get stomped.
Yeah, they say like and subscribe. You could like or subscribe, one of the two, but really we would prefer both. So embrace that and be one of our fully fledged supporters here.
Yep, as we do see the Fable take up to 2. Raja's going to take a second. Looks like he does have 2 spells and a land in hand, and he's a little stuck on mana. So might be the old Fabled, if you would, use no chapter of Fable 2. And Max in a commanding spot. I think Max is also, stabilizing his life total thanks to Shieldred and really forcing Raja to do something here. Look like Raja discarded only 1 card, I believe. So just down to, it looks like he did discard 2. Okay, so down to 6. He is really under the gun. He needs to find some way to answer the Shield. It makes you think that I misread his hand and it wasn't a fatal push there. That's on me. As we do see Raja move to combat, it looks like, with his Graveyard Trespasser, maybe just trying to gain a little life too, eating the other Graveyard Trespasser there and being up 2 life.
Yeah, this is one really tricky thing about dealing with Shieldred is if you don't already have the answer, then sometimes you feel obliged to go digging and drawing cards in search of the answer, but you're getting zapped for 4 or 6 life in the process.
Yeah, and we're going to see a double treasure moment here. And it looks like we're going to use one of those. Looks like, okay, maybe we drew the fatal push off the thing, but we're going to now fatal push the Shieldred so that can't get in the way of blocks. And looks like Max is going to take down a copy of himself. And, if Max has a land, if Raja doesn't have another creature play, looks like maybe Raja felt like he announced the Graveyard Trespasser trigger while doing it and is saying my life total is at 7, you're at 19. I'm sure this is going to take care of it. It is a time-shifted match, so we can't do anything along the lines of getting a judge involved or cutting away. Looks like we're just going to take a second here. Looks like those players are just waiting a second. Yeah, from the body language here. And this sort of thing happens. Sometimes you say it. You got to make sure the stack's clear. We saw Max mix a Shieldred trigger earlier today. While, all these players do know each other and we've been grinding all year to get to this point, and you want to have the casual fun too, there is still a level of like, hey, we need to make sure we do things correctly. This is an important match of Magic. It's $5,000 to the winner, and the difference between making top 4 and top 8 is a sizable chunk of cash. I believe it's about another $400 difference. So, this is a $400 match at minimum going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to come back to the booth real quick here. Let's pull up Raja's decklist because he had a more innovative take on it. So it turns out this is time shifted. We can't fast forward at the moment. It's going to be a couple minutes on that. So we're going to look over these deck lists here. This is Raja's deck list. And Dom, we mentioned it before. He has the Doomblade. The only person in the field that matters against is Max here, but also has Liliana the Veil. Do you have any thoughts on that card? Because I think if we told people, 6 months ago, Liliana is going to enter Pioneer and maybe be a one of, they would laugh at us.
Yeah, this deck already was glutted on 3-drops before Liliana was spoiled, and then the moment we knew Liliana was coming back to Pioneer, the thought was, okay, but I guess we have yet another 3-drop joining the roster here. Instead, though, it's kind of been edged out of these sets over time. And so the fact that you see even the first copy in Raja's deck and then another one on the sideboard, that itself seems like a surprise at this point, which is kind of wild to think about. But from what I understand, you have these Rakdos experts like Mr. Ginger and others who say that if you want to beat the mirror, Liliana's one really good card there. So again, can't play too many copies, and this is the same kind of thing we were mentioning with the Delver decks and Legacy yesterday. Is you can really bias your deck against the mirror, but only to a point, and you have enough kind of generic answers and so on that no card can really dominate the game in quite that way. But Max has come prepared with his own ways of doing that, and so Max is fielding the full 3 copies main deck of Reckoner Bankbuster, a card which is one of the go-to sideboard cards in the mirror against some of these other slower decks. And Max says, you know what? I think this is good enough in the mirror and also just good enough as a general card that I just want to have these, start these, and then that also frees up some sideboard slots in the process.
100%. It also has a weird dynamic. Reckoner Bankbuster lines up very well against the Liliana. It's a 4-power creature that you can play on turn 2 that you cannot edict, and it draws cards, so it invalidates some of the low resource games Liliana Vale tries to create. So really favoring Max there on that perspective, not even counting the fact that Doomblade is just only able to kill Bonecrusher Giant and Reflection of Kiki Jiki out of Raja's deck in this matchup. Luckily for him, he has not drawn it yet, so it's not a huge problem. Let's pull up Max's deck for a second there if we can. I know Dom, there, just talked about it and talked about how we do have these 3 Bankbusters. That's a huge edge. Has these power word kills. That's a huge edge. Is only on 1 Dreadboard, though, so maybe Liliana could take over a game. But, Dom, if I had to pick one of these 2 players to win, I really like Max's side of the table. And I'm assuming you might still lean Raja since he is your pick to win the tournament.
I think Raja made a good calculated gamble that there aren't going to be that many other Rakdos decks in the field. I don't know if Max explicitly made the same gamble, but just in case, he came prepared. And I love that we even have the 4th Bankbuster there in the sideboard. Like, he wants that card on turn 2 every single game, and he's much more likely to be able to do that. Also has an Abrade to win these kind of Bankbuster fights as well. And then, yeah, I think Max is maybe a little better set up overall in the mirror, but it's the mirror. The games go long. Lots of chance is for better draws or better experience to come into play on either side.
I was going to say, yeah, Max here has 3 Castle Lockline, which is a big thing when it comes to draws as well. But you mentioned experience. Max is someone who's very experienced in Magic Online, but relative to the field and everything, sort of newer to competitive Magic. I believe it's about 2 or 3 years for him really trying, which is, a good chunk of time. Meanwhile, Raja Suleiman has, barely missed Pro Tour top 8s, has a bunch of good Grand Prix finishes, is someone that is very well known for being a very skilled and tight player. Heck, even on our series, he almost top 8'd 4 events in a row, Dom, being defeated by Harlan Fear, who just showed up to one event to play and was the only person who could stop Raja. So there's a reason a lot of our commentators picked Raja Suleiman to win the event. He's an incredibly skilled player and brought 2 decks that leverage that skill incredibly well.
And this match also has big consequences for the rest of the top 4 too, where you know that you're getting a copy of Rakdos Midrange for the Pioneer portion in there no matter what. But for Modern, you have Raja's very innovative take on Blue-Eye Control on the one hand versus Is It Murktide by the writer of the Is It Murk Guide, Max Komanowski, on the other side. So if you're someone who likes to match up against one of those decks, not versus the other, and you're in the top 4, then maybe this match has big implications for you as well.
Yeah, big to remember too that like in the top 4, we're playing 2 out of 3 matches. So we're going to come back to the booth here real quick. But yeah, it's 2 out of 3 matches. So importantly, when you're playing, you get to pick which format you're going to play first as well. So Jessie Robkin, I believe, is the higher seed is how it worked out or something like that. So she's going to get to choose whoever her opponent is. I'm not quite sure who yet. She's going to be like, okay, I'm going to play Team or Breach versus, your deck or whatever. And if the matchup's bad, I'll play Mono White. So a lot of different variations there. We're back down here. It looks like Raja, the judge ruled that Raja did renounce the trigger, even if like maybe the cards didn't touch the zone right away. So Raja up to 7. Looks like Max decided to block one of the 2/2s with this 3/3. Pretty basic stuff there. And then Raja has a Blood Tithe Harvester, making it so that, this activation of a Hive of the Eye Tyrant would not be immediately lethal as Raja plays his own Hive, and Max very quickly untaps and draws. He knows that he is very close to having this game wrapped up.
Yeah, with that long break, I got myself in the mindset of, okay, we're going to sideboarding, we're going to see some game twos, and maybe hopefully a game three here. We are still in the midst of what could be a very competitive game one, so got a long match of Magic ahead of us here potentially.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that's important in this matchup, from my understanding from talking to Misplaced Ginger and watching his stream, is you want to be ahead on board so that you can take time to do your card advantage stuff. And Max was that way for a few turns with Shieldred, got Raja low, but now Raja has a commanding board presence and a Fable the Mirror Breaker soon to flip with a Blood Tithe Harvester. Now, Max is going to drain Raja back down to at least 6. We might see the trade here with the Blood Tithe Harvester. But we could also see maybe Raja take the hit and try and flip it over and start making a bunch of copies. Looks like Raja is going to think about what exactly he wants to do over the next few turns here. Something we've seen from all our players this weekend, Dom, that we keep talking about is they're taking their time to think through 2 or 3 turns before making an action.
Another Harvester for Max, and is that another Fable left over?
Yeah, I think Max is a Fable, but he looks like he's sizing up maybe getting a Bone Crusher Giant in play just so the Graveyard Trespasser doesn't start running him over. Kind of an awkward spot, too, because he's out of cards.
Yeah, you have the Harvester, which could maybe threaten to jump in front, but do you want to try and guarantee that? Looks like we're just going for the Fable, thinking going to want to dig for a more high-impact play next turn, perhaps. Work towards that reflection of Kiki-Jiki as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be a spot, too, where Max is like, listen, I'm going to do this. You're not going to trade your, Graveyard Trespasser with your Fable flipped over and you have no gas. So I'm going to force you to have a good draw step if you're going to want to be attacking and forcing me to trade. Otherwise, I'm not going to be flooding out for a little bit here. Even if he does, though, I guess he has double Bone Crusher Giant to play off the adventure and get the board presence back on his side. Kind of an interesting spot to be in.
Yeah, Max can fill the board with stuff, but none of that stuff is especially impressive given what's going on right now. But Raja also kind of on empty, so could come down to who finds, the first Shieldred, the first Castle Lockthrain could really help to break this game open as well. But Raja also only on 6 life if those life totals are up to date. So Max could set up with some big all-out attack and really get in range of Raja's life total.
Yep, and it looks like Raja did draw some... Oh, is this like a Shieldred? He's using 4 mana. Oh, it looks like it's a Hive of the Eye Tyrant activation. Okay. Raja's like, listen, I need to be aggressive here and force Max on the back foot. I guess probably, respecting that Bone Crusher Giant that's on adventure there. And also, it flips to Knight, so then we'd have a Gluttonous Trespasser, which is a 4/4, and that's pretty huge, especially when you start copying Reflection of Kiki-Jiki.
Mm-hmm. And with Max being out of cards, even if he does find a removal spell for the Glutton, well, you won't be able to pay for the ward. So that Glutton might actually survive through this entire turn cycle and really define what's going on the board here.
Yep. Yeah, we see Raja get rid of Fatal Push. Even though he got rid of one of the Croxes, he wants to leave the creatures for the Glutton. Good tactical play. Max here just takes 5 on the chin. It's like, okay, I'm not going to win by sort of trading off here. I'm going to need to be the aggressor. And Max is admittedly very close to having, a lethal or near lethal attack, especially when you activate his creature lane. It could be his Hive or his Den of the Bugbear. He's got both in play. So a lot of options available to Max as he is going to rummage as well. A very common trend in these Rakdos decks is you getting a lot of choices all the time.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've already seen Jesse Robkin and Andrew Ellenbogen, 2 teammates who were together for this event, both booked their seats in the top 4. They now have a 150 card mirror because they're going to be playing both formats in our top 4. Ahead of them, they are prepared for that top 4 round. And now one of these 2 players here, Max Komanowski, Roger Suleiman, going to take that other seat going up against Zoe Riederman in the other quarterfinals.
Dang. All right. So the winner of this is going to play Zoe Riederman, and Zoe's playing Living End. So that is an interesting matchup no matter what happens on the modern side of things. And it's playing mono green. So I've got a feeling that if Zoe's the higher seed, we're going to see some mono green versus Rakdos mid-range from old Joe and Drake here in just a little bit. But we're not done with us yet here, as we do see an attack with the Fable. And looks like Roger's trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. And it looks like Roger's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
man, I'm the block.
Usually here you would think, okay, well, this is 2 damage plus 2 from a Bone Crusher Giant. But then, again, the ward could not be paid for. So you don't even have to worry about that. We're going to see Max just play some cards out, develop another Fable and a Bone Crusher Giant, and turn it back into day in the process.
Yeah. If you're at home and you're watching this, it looks like Max made a bad attack, but really what he did is he shrunk the Graveyard Trespasser, saved himself some life, and if Raja outthinks himself, pushes a little bit of damage, as it does look like Max is taking a second to maybe ask a judge question away from the table, or maybe use the bathroom. Everyone's human.
As we wait for Max to return, let's go over the structure of this top 4 quickly, because we mentioned both the Modern and the Pioneer decks could come into play. What exactly is the mechanism for that?
Yeah, so the way it works is the higher seed gets to choose. They're going to be on the play and choose the format, and then the loser of the first match picks what's going on for the second match. So we're playing 2 out of 3 matches here. So, for example, we know Andrew Ellenbogen, higher seed than testing teammate Jesse Robkin. Congratulations to those two to making top 4. One of them is going to make the finals. In this situation, Andrew Ellenbogen is going to say, okay, look, I'm the Pro Tour Mono White champion. You're the Breach Master. I'm going to guess I'm going to play the Mono White Mirror instead. And so they're going to play, and whoever loses, let's say, Ellenbogen loses somehow in that matchup, and he goes, okay, look, I lost that time. We're going to play Pioneer again. And then he beats Jesse, and then Jesse gets to go, okay, well, it's my turn to pick, and I think I'm going to be the better Breach player than you. So I'm going to pick Breach. And that's how that format's going to work. So you're going to pick Pioneer or Modern and play matches. You need to win 2 out of 3 matches. So for Zoe's situation, we're probably going to guess to see her pick Mono Green, although she is playing Living End, which she is a master of, and has some medium to good matchups depending on where you stand on those sort of things in the top. And start with the winner of either match here. So Zoe in a great place as well, as we do see
Andrew
blood.
Andrew does go around saying, I am the Pro Tour Mono White champion quite a lot in my experience. It's not okay. More and more people are saying this. It's just Andrew saying it and saying it a lot.
yeah, and he says it a lot too. It's weird. We're like at dinner, and he's like, "I don't know if you know this, but no." But jokes aside, we get an attack here for 5, 6 damage total thanks to the Graveyard Trespasser trigger to put Raja up to 7, and that one of Liliana the Veil. We mentioned how it can be important here, coming in clutch there as something that both answers Max's thing and makes it so that Max has a removal spell. He's not going to be able to sandbag it. He's going to have to use it right away.
Yeah, so that Fable going to the 3rd chapter, I imagine will transform in a second here. There we go.
Does Max have 2? Does he have 6 Fables? Or 8 Fables? He has 4 Fables and then 4 backsides de-sleeved? This is the ultimate Jund foil router situation. That's just absurd.
If you have 8 foil Fables, well, that's your kid's college fund right there. That's a very good investment.
Yeah. As we do see a Shieldred off the top, a huge draw from Max there. That is the kind of thing that he needed to see.
It's a shame that Max's Mysterious Benefactor couldn't pony up some foil Shieldred as well. But, you biggest can't be choosers, right? If you're borrowing a deck like this, you take what you're given.
That's true. Yeah, it might be a chance for Max to do better in the future as we see Raja fall to 5. And, this Graveyard Trespasser is going to be really hard to kill with its Ward ability and Liliana the Veil in play. Looks like we have a lethal situation for Raja. Raja's like, hey, man, I got this treasure. I'm going to activate. I'm going to attack with everything. This has menace. You can't block everything. And I'm going to kill you. He might have some other thing that's happening. But
it's 3 menace and then one damage, 1 drain from the Trespasser. Yeah, so Raja going to deal exactly lethal there. And if you think back to a few turns ago where Raja started to attack, you was firing up that hive early, and it seemed like, okay, well, this is a surprisingly aggressive line. I think Raja saw a few turns down the line and was thinking, okay, I got to get this game over with. Don't like my odds in a longer game. And at the end of the day, a few turns later, each one of those attacks added up to exactly equal for Raja's side. So that's part of why you see Raja, one of the most respected players in this field, and the most popular pick among us commentators for a potential winner. And he is still very much in the mix, a game up in this Rakdos Mirror between him and Max, looking for that last seat in the top 4.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against Raja. Like I mentioned, he is probably our second most accomplished player in our field. He just has so many great results and has proven himself time and time again for nearly a decade now on the Magic scene, and just someone that, you don't want to be sitting across from if your win and ends on the line. Unfortunately for Max, that's the case. Let's quickly check out the sideboards real quick here and throw them up. And we're just going to hyper point out the cards. We looked at these during the judge call real quick. This is going to be Max's deck list. Real quick, we kind of talked about it in before. We're probably just going to bring in like the Bank Buster and call it a day here. Has most of the cards actually pre-boarded in this matchup. Let's take a quick look at Raja here as we do want to get to our players and get to our top 4 ASAP. From this side, Dom, I think it's pretty much just Liliana, the Veil, and the Bankbusters, right? Basically, it's making his deck look more like Max's.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. You are not going to get up to the full 4 Bankbuster. That's something Max's list can boast that yours can't, but those Lilianas can do some nice work as well. Also, you identify Castle Lochthwain as a big deal in the mirror. 3 copies in Max's
Yeah,
only that one, it looks like, hiding out at the bottom there for Raja.
100%. Let's get back to the feature match area, as these players are already starting up. They're hungry. They want to eat lunch real quick and then play their top 4. This match has already been decided once again. It's a time shifted match, so don't worry. These players are getting a break between now and playing. Looks like Max decided to bring in Duress as well. Makes sense. Maybe, expects a lot of non-creature threats from the board. Unfortunately, Raja here has only creatures. So Max maybe upgraded his Thoughtseize to Duress and got a little here. Oh, I guess he took that Thoughtseize. My mistake there. So did have a hit, but it was another situation of discard the discard spell.
Yeah, we mentioned these Thoughtseize effects are picking up more stock in the mirror just with how high impact each of these individual cards are, to the point where Max now boarding in Duress as well. And that makes even more sense in the post-Cyborg games where you want to snag their Bankbuster. Raja has 2 Lilianas as well. Lots of high impact targets alongside the usual, Fables and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a lot of Magic theory that's been coming into question recently. Just because 10 years ago it was right to side out your Thoughtseizes in the Jund mirror doesn't mean it's right 10 years later, especially with a different design. And it's cool to see players sort of question that, especially these, younger generation of Magic Online Zoomers have success with it and, be rewarded. As we remember the war trigger here, we're going to discard a land after we upgrade the Graveyard Trespasser. Sort of a Drago situation there. Max wanted to make sure he was ahead on board when the time came for his Shieldred on turn 4. And I think he has got it lined up. Yeah, plays his Castle Lochthwain and plays his Shieldred and passes the turn. Raja down to 18, and now onus on him to do something.
Take 2, sack MD, and now Raja has, it looks like his own Shieldred that he can fire back with, or if he has a removal spell instead, well, now you get into this interesting debate of, do you just try and have the Shieldred mirror match going on, where all of the triggers are cancelling out, negating each other, or do you just try and get rid of Max's Shieldred before it can get out of control?
Yeah, and it looks like both players have agreed, like, hey, our Shieldreds are going to trigger, and we're just not going to make each other do that. Also, funny enough, it actually does matter if the life totals are low enough, which one triggers first between active and non-active play, like ASNAP situation. But for right now, it doesn't really matter, as it is nighttime, since Max just played a land and passed the turn, has his Castle Lochthwain activation up and ready to go if he wants it, but also has a bunch of spells available to him. Do you think Raja will attack with his Shieldred?
Ooh, we're stomping? Stomping Max?
Stomp.
Okay. And then what else have we got here?
Yeah.
Just casting it and passing. All right. So it is day.
Yeah.
Once again.
Huge.
And yeah, you see the pens being picked up and put down again. Just not much point when Shieldred's dueling across the board here.
Does look like Max chose to activate Castle Lochthwain. I think he took 3 from that. And now has a Reckoner Bankbuster. So he's going to have a much easier on the mana and life way to draw cards as he plays a Blood Crypt there, Expedition style. And looks to be in a pretty solid spot here. Raja has a little bit more board presence, but, Max has more cards, and Bankbuster is going to continue to go that way.
I wonder how many ways each player will have of actually getting Shieldred off the board, because Fatal Push it's a fine removal spell. It's not match up. It's not that inspiring. And then you've got some of the bigger ones. I imagine Raja's Doomblade has found its way out of the deck. But beyond that, if a Shieldred sticks, it is surprisingly difficult to remove sometimes. We're seeing Raja, I think, with the second copy of Bonecrusher Giant in hand, hoping the Max just tries to eat it with the Shieldred here.
Yeah, and this is such a hard spot for Max, right? Because for Raja, and this is why Raja is one of our best players and one of the people so many people watch, right? He attacks, he might not have anything. He might have Fatal Push to get revolted. If Max takes this 4 and gets stomped, another Bonecrusher gets in play, Max is really far behind on life total, so he might just have to take this block. Raja's like, okay, sounds good. I'll do 4, and then after damage is assigned, I'm going to then pass the turn. It looks like Max has nothing, and Raja didn't have another stomp in hand. It was just a bluff attack as Max activates the Bankbuster. And I thought and Raja held the stomp, just wanted to play around, I guess, Max killing his own creature or something. Holy moly, Articholi. I guess he did this in response to the Bankbuster activation on the stack maybe there in order to make Max lose a life off the draw, but instead didn't. Wow, that is an incredible play for Raja.
Yeah, Raja knows that Max is going to do something at the end step, whether it's castle, Bankbuster, whatever. And so timing it nicely, but Max had the fatal potion, so all the shielders disappeared, all of the would-be shielded triggers disappeared. The stack is now officially empty. We can breathe easy.
Yeah. Whew. And Raja, once again, almost calling Max out, right, Dom? He's like, listen, if you just want to get your free one for zero friend, you have it. You have priority. And just sort of said Max won't pass up that sort of value to get another card and gets rewarded for it. And Max is going to have to hold that one as he is now, still ahead on board currently, but could have been much further ahead as Raja has just lands and fatal push in hand. He does have a Bone Crusher Giant on adventure. Oh, it looks like he actually drew Croxer for the turn. My mistake. Looks to be holding here right now. Crox is a good way to trigger Revolt. Also, it's a situation where he doesn't quite have the cards to come back from graveyard, and there's a Hive of the Eye Tyrant on the other side. Yeah,
it looks like we are a card away from escaping the Croxer at present, so we're going to try and set up a turn where we can play the Croxer and escape it all in one motion there. And if that happens, then Croxer can really dominate a board by itself, the same way that something like a Shielder can.
Yeah, and look at Max's deck and think about it more. I think I was talking about Max was expecting a lot of mirrors. I think he was really expecting a lot of blue-white control because thinking about the Castle Lockthorn and Zamor, they're nice in the mirror by all means, but there's a lot of situations in games like this where you sort of fall behind a bunch and taking 3 damage, to draw a card is a lot. But against blue-white control, it's pretty free. And we did have 3 blue-white control players in Pioneer, so Max pretty rewarded there. And it's not even like it's completely punished him here. He just needs to make sure that he can actually cast all these cards.
Yeah, Foil Fable joins the Foil Bankbuster here. It is day. Thank you to our table spotter. Oh, no, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's end of turn still. Raja might do something. It's weird there's not a day-night removal spell. Like this one cost 1 less of its night. It's just kind of weird. All right, now it's day. As we do see Raja draw a Haunted Ridge, I believe, and now has the correct cards for Croxa. And, Max had pull ahead on cards, but if he's going to have to discard real cards, otherwise he's going to lose a lot of life because this is sort of a face-up play for Raja here, as Max sort of knows, there's nothing you're going to really do besides Croxa me, so I can just draw this card here and make perfect information. But I also know Croxa is coming. Oh, we got the pilot token ready to go. Max picked up a swamp.
And Raja is at a fairly comfortable life total. Max is not. And so you would kind of like to just start throwing some lands away to these Croxer triggers. But there's a finite number of times you can do that before Croxer does you in regardless.
Yeah, we saw Max start with a discard of a land here. I guess, basically saying maybe I have to keep this spell. Maybe I'll discard it, if he plays it again. But, oh, wait, it's swamp something in hand. Max might just be on all lands and is going to have to rely on this Fable the Mirror Breaker to get out of it if he discards the land to keep the 3 life, which he does. Yeah. Max down to 3. That means that attack trigger is potentially lethal. Now, Max gets a lot of redraws, but we're in a crazy awkward spot here for Max. Raja plays the land and now passes the turn.
Okay, what's his first card?
I think it was a red something.
That's it.
Yeah, he definitely has... Oh, he had the Thoughtseize. He's going to discard that. Double trigger Raja, hey, you didn't want to respond, right? Roger's like, yeah, no, you're good.
Head in hands again. Usually has been a good sign in some of our matches so far, but I think Max is staring the end of his tournament squarely in the face.
Yeah, unfortunately, Max is not part of Team Ellenbogen, which is elbow on table, as we learned. And that means it's going to be a bad day here, I think, as he can maybe play a land, cast a spell, activate Castle, and draw something like a Fatal Push. But he's going to be on the razor-thin lines for the rest of the game. And with Den of the Bugbear and Hive of the Eye Tyrant in the mana base, Max is going to need a lot of really tight, really good draw steps and turns played to get out of this one. But someone who is known for doing that and plays these high agency decks like Murktide in this very well and could get out of this spot. Max is by no means not used to these positions.
Yeah, I don't know if we can even get a card out of our hand so that we could castle it again just to look for the push. Yeah, I think it's just all lands all the time. And you can't unload those faster even if you want to. So I think Roger's going to send Croxer into combat, and we are going to have our top 4 decided here.
It looks to be that way. Yeah, Max maybe kicking himself for not just for not keeping the Thoughtseize so you could at least chump block. Seems a little unclear. It seems like he's thinking. Yeah, he's shaking his head. It makes me think there's something going on here, maybe on the upkeep of Raja that he was thinking about doing, but maybe he's just planning to discard the card. Did Raja pick up his second Croxa? Oh, it looks maybe that was a Fatal Push instead. Gonna be an awkward turn no matter how you slice it here. Raja also might be thinking, well, maybe this attack trigger just works, but I don't want to rush that. I know I'm going to get at least a little bit of value here.
Well, if Max had a removal spell, then your Croxer's not getting into combat. So I imagine we're going to see the tentative hand motion. Can I attack? Can I attack? And if the coast is clear, then Raja knows what the deal is. And then if Max is sitting on that push or that power word kill or something, then we'll have to reveal that before too long here. Yeah.
It looks like Raja is basically deciding, do I want to activate the Hive of the Eye Tyrant? And, I have to do that before I'll know if my Crox is going to get an attack. And if I do that and he has maybe double kill spell or I use my mana, am I going to lose this game? Because Raja is so far ahead right now on life and on cards. Max has more cards seen, but a lot of them are lands, which aren't mattering too much here, as we do see Raja sort of, timidly a little bit, even for him, sort of be like, yeah, okay, Hive. And Max is like, all right, well, now that we're doing this, power word kill your Croxa. Yeah. And that means that Raja will not be able to kill with this Hive of the Eye Tyrant. He could attack and eat the Goblin token because it does have Menace. So it's going to force a double block. But
well, if Raja has a removal spell of his own, then we're not going to get to 2 blocks. And so that's going to seal the deal, even with the Croxer dying here. So
it only seals the deal if Max tries to activate the vehicle, right? He has two tokens right now that he can just throw in the way.
Well, so let's see if Max goes to animate the Hive, and then we have is that a pilot token that can? Okay, so
yeah,
shields are up, defenses are up, going to be okay regardless.
Yeah, Max taking a really risky line there. If Raja had Fatal Push in response to that crew, Max had lost the game. So really risky line there. Personally, I would be too much of a coward to do it. I would just have taken my double block, but you see Max here. Oh, and Raja maybe missing that it was lethal. Maybe our life totals aren't correct. It's possible maybe the player's at 4. And then Raja's going to cast this Croxa, and Max just has a land. Maybe it is just 3 life, and Raja is like, whatever. Max is going to attempt to draw a card, draw a spell. He stays alive.
Draw a spell off castle.
He drew Fatal Push. He's alive. But Max is at 1. He has a flip Fable and a blocker. He could maybe pull out of this game if you draw something like a Shieldred here or a Bone Crusher Giant.
Graveyard Trespasser, maybe?
Yeah, Graveyard Trespasser would be great against that Croxa as well. Make sure that Raja doesn't get out of this game. What a crazy game we've had. Let's get ready here as we are. It looks like it's going to be one of the final turns of this game, unless Max drew some sort of interaction here as Raja draws a Blood Tithe Harvester. Raja, gets to activate the Hive of the Eye Tyrant here. It's going to force a double block if there isn't a removal spell, so the board's going to clear, and then Raja will have Den of the Bugbear, which creates 2 attackers. One's a 1/1, obviously, which is all he needs. And
do we have... is there at least one Hive hiding out there for Max in those beautiful foil lands there?
I think there might be near one of the castles. It's a little hard to see, but I think you are right. So I guess Max still has a chance to clean things up. It looks like Raja's actually going with the Den.
Den of the Bugbear instead, and this makes some amount of sense, right? Because if Max is at 1, that Golem token is a lethal threat too. So
yeah, this makes sense. You force the Hive to trade with the Bugbear, so then you minimize that, and then looks like he's actually going to keep his Hive. Interesting. Okay, I guess he wants a Hive for a Hive. Makes a card like Graveyard Trespasser a little bit worse off the top, but doesn't have that. We have a Blood Tithe Harvester here, and Raja, you cannot forget, has Croxa in the graveyard with at least 4 other cards right now. So no matter what we draw for turn, we can discard it to blood and get it going here as we drew another Fable the Mirror Breaker for Max. So he's going to need some spell in hand in order to not die to the animated Hive and the escaped Croxa. But I guess currently Raja can't do both.
Hive answers the Croakster, but then if you animate an attack, well, then Roger can animate his own Hive, and then you got to field 3 blockers between the Menace there and the Harvester. So,
and this is what we talked about too when we talked about how Misplaced Ginger talks about, hey, in this matchup, being on the board matters a lot. That's because of things like this, where you can have all the card advantage, but if your life total is too low, you can't use in this matchup. People just have stomps, they have Croxas. It doesn't actually work out that way. Great insight there, as we do see the escape happen, and we know with only 1 life, it is game over with the Urban board. And Raja Suleiman wins. Congratulations to Raja. He is going to be moving on to our top 4. He's going to be joining Andrew Ellenbogen, Jesse Robkin, and Zoe Riedman. He's going to be playing Zoe in a match. We're going to see that in just a bit. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break here. But first, thank you so much for NRG for putting on this event. This is going to be the end of Domini for this part of the tournament. You're going to have Joe Lissette and Drake Sasser take you home for the rest of the top 4. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity and getting to work with you all in the NRG series this year. Dom and I joined kind of late, but I think I speak for Dom when I say we both had a great time. We've loved being here.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, always an honor. And we have a great top 4 to watch, work its way towards the final one here. We're going to crown a winner, give them a nice chunk of change, and the bragging rights that come with being your NRG champion for the year. So before the day is done, we are going to have that for you. And Joe and Drake are going to take it home.
Thank you all. We'll see you all in just 5 minutes. So make sure to follow. Don't leave. Get some water. We'll be right back.